There's a lot of it out there to the point where certain social media companies are actually deleting them, demonetizing them, etc.
If it looks like AI, it sounds like AI, it feels like AI, it probably is AI.
It won't sound like AI slop, look like AI slop. And especially for the wide spectrum of an audience, a lot of them probably won't even know. But now they know because we're being transparent with them.
Once you've written an article, whether it's on Substack, LinkedIn, or anywhere else, you then want to share it as broadly as possible so that people actually see it. The problem is that all the different platforms that we use to communicate, all different social media platforms, have different customs.
I think this whole topic comes into kind of an important note to make, which is transparency. If you're going to use AI in your writing, in any type of social media, really, you should be transparent about it. I'm Lior from Exploring ChatGPT.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea. I am a strategy management consultant.
Obviously, you write articles on Substack. I write articles on Substack. What does your process look like? Your social media posting, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so I thought this would be a really interesting subject to talk about because once you've written an article, whether it's on Substack, LinkedIn, or anywhere else, you then want to share it as broadly as possible so that people actually see it. So quite often you can rely on the algorithm to make your article visible, but not too often. And so you need to be quite proactive and build some communications yourself. And the problem is that all the different platforms that we use to communicate, all different social media platforms, have different customs. They have a different register based on their audience. They have different length limits. And it's quite challenging to turn an article into some social media communications that your audience on a given platform will actually want to read and engage with. And clearly, this communication can't be just here's my article, read it, and you paste the link. You need to share something. And to do that, you need to extract a claim from whatever it is that you're trying to share. You need to frame it for the specific platform that you're trying to use. And you need to match the tone that the audience is expecting to engage with on that platform. And in my experience, that sort of thing takes a good 30 to 45 minutes per article if you want to do it properly. And I've been reflecting on this quite a lot because, yeah, for me, it's a genuine time pit. And this applies to my work on Substack, but also in my professional career. Whenever I write something, I need to communicate about it. It's genuinely time consuming to produce decent communications materials.
So you mentioned 30 to 45 minutes, right? I think a lot of people would say, well, how's 30 to 45 minutes seems like you're just shipping it out there, right? So is there some type of middle ground here or is that that's your base level, 30 to 45 minutes?
I would say if you want to do it properly, it has to be at least 30 to 45 minutes. There is an easy way out. I would call it the lazy option, which is you can just copy whatever you've written or, I don't know, somebody else's article if you want to share somebody else's work. You put it in Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever you like, and you tell it, turn this article into a LinkedIn post. And let's be honest, that works. The mechanics of that, it just works. But what you'll see that over time you end up with lots of pieces that sound the same and also drift from your voice. Well, actually, they were never in your voice to begin with. They are in Claude or ChatGPT's or Gemini's voice, which is not horrible. Again, let's be honest, they do a pretty good job, but it's not you. And also, what they tend to pick out of materials that you put in them is average. Yeah, in the chat there's AI Slop. That's right. It's average content. So they pick up average claims, average points to make about the content. So without you adding your judgment and your why does this matter? What matters here? You end up with something that it just doesn't land. It falls flat. So you end up with maybe with a regular content machine, but it's not good. And the only way out is either you invest some proper time to do it, which is what many people do, or you create a system that knows your voice, that knows how different platforms work and what they expect, and then a system that can be repeated and that can learn from you.
So I guess before we go into the example that we have, so this system that you're talking about, right? How do you decide what it needs to do? But then also, how can somebody actually build this system themselves? Because from what I'm understanding is, and like you said, AI slop. right? There's a lot of it out there to the point where certain social media companies are actually deleting them, demonetizing them, etc. And I think at a certain point, sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not, right? So, how do you decide what this system needs to do? What does it look like?
So I think you need to have some guiding principles that apply to, I suppose, to anything that you design with AI. So I think one of the first things is that whatever you build needs to be based on questions. The art of asking questions is what I write on Substack. You need to ask questions of the content. It's not just a summary of the content that you want to share, because a summary doesn't have a perspective. And so it's not going to land unless people who follow you value your contribution in terms of making things visible to them. And there are channels like that, and that's fair enough. But in my case, it's definitely not what I do or what people expect from me. So that's the first thing. Base the approach on questions, and then there has to be human judgment involved in the system. And the human judgment should not be optional; it needs to be enforced. So first of all, the system needs to ask you what to focus on. So, not pick for you what you should be talking about. You need to tell it what you want to talk about. The system needs to help you in that process, but the decision needs to be with you. And then you need to decide, are these drafts aligned with my voice and good enough? So, you need to approve what goes out. But everything else can be automated. And the final thing that you need to put in here is your voice. So you need to describe your voice to the large language model that you're using, because otherwise it will just write in its own default way, which, as I was saying, is not terrible, but it's also not good. And I think we're all getting used, as you were saying, Leo, to those social media messages that just, I can't prove that's AI, but if it looks like AI, it sounds like AI, it feels like AI, it probably is AI. So I think people are becoming more sensitive to this and, well, don't like it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely understand. I think before we keep the ball rolling here, I think this whole topic comes into kind of an important note to make, which is transparency. If you're going to use AI in your writing, in any type of social media, really, you should be transparent about it. And I think what we're going to be sharing with you here today, which we'll say Andrea's idea originally, which is source to ship, like it's our way of showing you, okay, let's be transparent about this process, right? Across the board from start to finish. And we'll give you every step along the way, right? Is this a good time to get into source to ship, Andrea?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. So, and I completely agree with that message. Also, I work in professional services as a consultant. So the the point about transparency is essential. So we need to be honest about what this doesn't and how it does it as well. So yeah, I'll show you on screen now this piece of automation. As Leo said, is called source to ship. Now, later we'll show you what it looks like in action as well and how we've implemented it. Now, from what you see today, also feel free to recreate this yourself if you are so inclined. It's a fair amount of work, but if you feel you have the skills, by all means, the content will be showing now is free for you to reuse however you like. So let me share my screen. So this is the pipeline that this source to ship approach follows. And so the idea is that at the beginning of the process, so when you want to decide what to communicate about, you need to have a source. So the source could be a transcript, an article draft, research notes, whatever it is. This is implemented through Claude Code on my computer, but we'll also show you how to run it in the chat. So essentially, what you do in this approach is that you put whatever materials you've got, even more than one file, into a folder. Can be any format like Word, PDF, slides, and that gets converted into Markdown so that it's AI friendly and AI can read it easily. Then Claude, or in my case, Claude, but if you implement it, otherwise it could be anything else. Claude interrogates the materials that you provided and tries to understand what are the claims that these materials are actually making. So to give you something to reflect on. So what do I want to talk about in my communications? And then it also looks at what's intention and what's left open. Are there some questions that have been left open that it would be helpful to address as part of any social media communications. And then at this time, it's important to have a human input. And so there is what I've called here a selection gate. So you need to tell the system what do you want to talk about. In this case, the default is 2 or 3 claims, as well as a one-line reason. So you need to tell it why do I want to talk about something. And later we'll see exactly what that looks like. And then at that point, once you provided your human input, the system will take each claim you've shortlisted and it works it for 3 different reader intents. So it looks to when it tries to develop a pitch to either persuade the audience, to substantiate the findings, or to push for application of the findings. So if it's about persuasion, you're thinking about a reader who's not really convinced. So they might not have thought about the subject before, or they might hold a different view. And the draft that you want to build is to shift the reader. When you're looking to substantiate the findings, the pitch is different. You have a reader who is open but is a bit skeptical, so they would accept the claim if you can back it. So the draft's job is to prove a given claim, and the final draft that the system gets you is for an audience that's already agrees or is at least aligned with what you're saying, but they want to know what to do with it. So once you've picked a claim, then the system will create 3 different pitches for each claim. And then at that point, you need to stop again. So a second interruption for human input. And you need to tell the system what platforms are you targeting, what type of content are you sharing. So is it standalone, or it's a post, or is the post with a link? And then the code will just shape the piece for you and will show you examples of what that looks like. And it will also enforce the platform rules like the length or the style as you've specified. And then the final step is that the whole thing is tidied up. So this works especially well on Claude Code. It wouldn't work in the chat. But basically anything that you ship is saved into the memory. So the next time you get to the assess stage, so step 2, the system goes back to whatever you posted before and checks, is there anything that completely contradicts what we're trying to communicate about now? Or, I don't know, have we talked about this 2 days ago and maybe it's time to chill out about this for a bit? So, yeah, I'll stop here for a moment and let you all absorb it. Leo, any questions from you?
Yeah, I think the part that really intrigues me the most is voice file, right? Because I think that and it ties into the whole topic well, because if people are automating their content with AI and it drifts off, you lose your voice, you lose your human vibe, I can say, in a certain way, right? So this is basically, in a way, a permanent version of implementing your voice, your human feel, and automate that and be able to post on social media. So why do you think this voice file is so important?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And the main reason is that, as you were saying, if you sound like just everybody else, which is now these systems, these large language models are available to pretty much anyone, at least in the free version, then it's very hard to rise above the average level of noise. So by creating this file, you can just sound like yourself without making all the effort that you'd normally need to sound like yourself. And the file, this voice file, is generally easy to sort out in that it's a plain text file that you fill in only once. So you prepare it once, you put in your register, so how you speak. So it could be, I don't know, fancy and academic, or it could be regular Joe and chilled out, or it could be like a clown. You pick what your register is. Your sentence rhythm. Do you only want to write short sentences, long sentences, a mix? What to avoid. So, are there some forms of wording or ways of talking that you don't like? And then, is there anything that you always do? And so you can tell the system all these things, and then it just remembers. So you do this once, it maybe takes 30 minutes or so to put together properly, but then you can forget about it and only update it over time if you feel that you want to try something different or it's not quite getting what you mean. And one thing I've done in the approach is to actually tell the code in its rules that it should refuse to run if you've not provided a voice file. And this is because it's so tempting to be lazy. And you've just got to do it. You do it once, but then it is genuinely done and you can forget about it.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I guess from step 1 all the way through, and then once you finish, right? So we went over why the voice file is so important. And I think like you mentioned, don't be lazy, right? We're already at a point in the world where almost anything could be automated for better or for worse. And if you do this voice file correctly, it will be, let's say, almost irrecognizable if you were to sit there and write the post yourself. Is that correct, Andrea?
Absolutely. And let me take us to the next view because I want to show you. So this is what you would see in Claude Code using the system. And you can see this is a LinkedIn message generated in my own voice. I'll zoom in a second. And you can also see a bunch of information at the top. So let me talk you through this in a bit more detail. So there you go. So this is the information the system gives you about everything that you generate. So when was it run? What's the source file that you use? No, nobody taught me how to sell. It's just a PDF of my latest Substack article. Destination LinkedIn. This is what I've asked. The intent. So as I was saying before, there were three intents. This one was substantiate, and then the claim. So this is a claim that I had picked based on the assessment that the approach provided. And then I also told it that I wanted to include a link as part of my posting because this is my latest Substack post. So I would want to advertise it naturally. And it also logged in that there's no hard cap on the word count because on LinkedIn there isn't a word count. And I want to read this out loud now for the audience, but I just wanted to say that this is something that I would be perfectly happy to copy and paste into my LinkedIn and press send. So this is something that the approach has created based on my voice file and on my guidance. So I picked the claim, I picked the pitch, but then the writing wasn't me at all. And all that I had to do was give a bit of a steer as opposed to writing things up all by myself.
Okay. Did you say that you wanted to read this? Is that what you said?
No, I said
No.
I didn't want to.
Okay. Interesting. So, like you mentioned, this is in Claude Code, correct?
Yes, that's
So,
right.
yeah, not everybody uses Claude Code. I don't. I'm more I'm actually, in terms of Anthropic's tools in general, I'm not there too much, but if we're staying within these set of tools, so let's say you don't use Claude Code, what are your other options here for the people that don't use Claude Code?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this was built with and on Claude Code, but it can be implemented in lots of different ways. So it can be Claude Code, which is the interface that we had here before. So this is Claude Code inside Visual Studio Code. And this is the full folder structure. There is quite a lot of stuff in there. But there are also other ways to use it, and they are Claude projects and Claude skills. And Claude projects specifically are something that can be replicated in any large language model. The Claude project example that I'll be showing you on screen is something that you can do with any large language model. And yeah, you can see here in the pipeline, there's a folder called Claude Chat Approach. So basically, if you drag and drop these three files plus a PDF in any chat with a large language model, it will execute the whole pipeline for you. So yeah, this is not tied to Claude at all. But let me show you what it looks like in Claude projects. Here we are inside Claude project. So this is the projects view, as you can see here at the top. There are some instructions here. The instructions are one of the files that I had in the Claude Code view. And then, as you can see here, the writing voice and the platform reference. So the writing voice, as we were saying, is how I wanted to write. And the platform reference describes how to write in LinkedIn, X, and Blue Sky, which is the platforms that I tend to use. But it's important to keep in mind that guidance is also completely editable. So if you wanted to post in a completely different platform that has different customs, then you can just tweak the guidance. It's all natural language in there. And as you can see up here, I'm inside a Claude project, and all I had to do in a Claude project was upload a PDF and press enter. As you can see up here, there is no prompt from me. It is literally I put the PDF and pressed enter, and then it did the work. As I was saying, if you wanted to do this in ChatGPT or Gemini, you would upload the PDF or whatever content you have, plus the pipeline guidance, the voice file, and the platform rules. But all you need to do is upload those files and press enter, and it will do the job. There's also another way to run this in Claude, which is like a Claude skill, which is slightly different in that Claude skills just run in your chat. They don't have memory, so projects have their own history of everything you've run before, whereas skills are just executed in the chat. So if you install the approach as a skill, essentially you can say create social media messages and upload whatever file. As you can see here, I'm not in the project anymore, so this is just a random chat. And I've expanded the reasoning here, and you can see reading the content pipeline skill since the user wants social post from an uploaded source, and then it's just doing the job. So yeah, these are three different ways of using it, and the Claude project approach specifically is the one where you can that you can also use in any other large language model.
Awesome. Awesome. I think as we keep the ball rolling here, I just want to mention real quick, a lot of people will have their opinions on this, right? And I think it's so important that we're showing this, Andrea, because a lot of creators here on Substack have their own workflows, at least in our kind of AI circle of people. Everybody does things a little bit differently, but not everybody's so super transparent about how they do things. And regardless of your opinions on AI generated content and what the process looks like behind the scenes, at least we're showing you, right? So if you want to do this yourself, you can. Then towards the end of the stream, if you guys stick around, we actually we have a link where you can actually do this yourself. We have a nice discount on it as well. So we'll share that towards the end if you stick around. And I just want to say again, thank you, Andrea, for showing this process and for being transparent with the audience. And look, we both have our own ways of doing things, but we've both gotten to a certain point of success taking a different route for each of us. But uh, we're showing you how we do things. Anybody can do this, and everybody has their own unique voice, which is, I think, the really special thing about this. You're putting your voice into AI, and then your output is AI automated with your voice. So it'll be individual. It won't sound like AI slop, look like AI slop, and especially for the wide spectrum of an audience, a lot of them probably won't even know. But now they know because we're being transparent with them, right? So basically, we're seeing this in in action, and basically, again, you're talking about Claude Code, and I want to know, in your opinion, speaking from my own background of not being a Claude Code guy, why do you think Claude Code wins in the long run?
So Claude Code is especially valuable because it runs things in a slightly different way compared to Chat. So it's got slightly different rules behind it, and it operates in a more structured way. So I think first of all, I personally find the Claude Code it tends to be more reliable and more consistent in what you get out of it. And the other side is that as part of this pipeline, there's also a library functionality where you save things that you posted about and you can refer back to them in the future. So that can help improve the alignment with your voice over time, as well as making sure that you don't contradict yourself over time. And this sort of approach is based on data, essentially. So you need that to be saved in a structured way with an index that Claude can look through and analyze in a structured way. And the only way to do that is through a proper way of working. So you need files and you need a reliable pipeline that runs on your computer, where some parts of it run on your computer. And I think one of the key aspects there about the library is that if you don't have it, you can simulate a library in a regular chat, in that it can have just a very long chat. Or you can rely on the memory of large language models more broadly, but it's not precise and it's not comprehensive. And what this approach gives you in Claude Code or in the chat, there's a point about Codex. Codex does this just as well. It needs some adaptation because it gets instructions slightly differently, but it just gives you that reliability that for me is essential. But that said, every now and then, say if I'm on my phone, I can access the skill through chat. So that's also very helpful. But on average, I think, yeah, relying on something that's more codified is really valuable.
Yeah, yeah. I think that question about Codex, and we'll answer some of the chats as well once we wrap up here, but in terms of Codex being better than Claude Code or Claude Code being better than Codex, I'm sure we've had these type of conversations before of the kind of the competition between models. I think it's just like use whatever you like to use, right? Whatever works best for you. The cool thing about what we're showing you here, it could be, like Andrea mentioned, you could use Codex. There's no problem with that. We're not here to go through benchmarks and tell you who's better than the other based on benchmarks, which we all know doesn't really mean much for general use. Like across the board, a lot of these companies are benchmarking to say we're the best. And keep in mind there's some ulterior motives behind that as well. The companies want to IPO, they want to say they're the best at X, Y, and Z, even if it's a 2% differential, right? And you're not going to feel that 2% differential. Based on what feels better to you, you might say Codex is better than Claude Code. Someone might say Claude Code is better than Codex. So we're not here to say one is better than the other. Definitely not. We're here to just show you the process, be transparent, and open the floodgates for more AI automated content on social media, regardless of whether people think it's needed or not. It's happening. So we're showing it to the world basically. And so yeah, I guess just to stay on Cloud Code for a second, if you don't want to commit to using it, so what would you tell somebody, Andrea?
I would say start with the sort of project setup that you can try on any large language model, including because Claude Code requires a subscription. So if you're not paying, then doing this using the classic chat approach works just as well, especially for casual use, because let's be honest, for these things, what I was talking about, the structure, the reliability, and all that, having a database, it matters if you do a lot of this, if you generate a lot of content, or if you have a lot of range in the context that you publish in terms of subjects. But if you do it more casually, then you don't really need to take it as far as Claude Code. And I just wanted to put on screen an example of this running in Claude. This is just my Claude window live, and I just put in write social media messages with a PDF. So this is the PDF that I actually had before, that I described before my latest article. And I want to show you how it works. So this is the skill approach, not the project, but yeah, it will work just the same way. And I'll just expand the reasoning process. So you can see the user is asking me to generate social media messages from an article. I'm recognizing the content pipeline skill would be a good fit for this task. So this has triggered the skill that I've installed. And then it just doing it. It knows that it should review the reference files first, so the writing voice and the platform reference as well. Oh, interesting that it's also showing them on screen. I didn't know that it would. So this is my platform reference, and then it just does the pipeline. And so the first step, as we were saying earlier, is to identify claims, tensions, and open questions. And then what it wants from you is this says the selection is yours to make. Pick 2 or 3 of the claims or open questions above that you want to develop into post with a one-line reason for each, and I'll take you from there. So I wanted to show you how this works. So let's pick this one. Let's do claim 5, and then I'll explain why I think this is important. I think this is important because it helps junior junior colleagues understand that not being good at business development is not their fault. There we go. So just to clarify, this article was about business development in professional services. This is why I'm writing this. I'll just press enter and let's see what Claude does live. So this is the step where it would take the claim that we've selected and develop different pitches for that claim. So, okay, yeah, it took a moment to wake up because I started this chat earlier. So there you go. Persuade, substantiate, and then apply. So these are three pitches. It's checking them against my voice to make sure that it's not doing anything that I don't like. And it's admitting the, if it spotted something that I don't like, which is nice. So let's say, I don't know, I like the apply pitch. So let's say, let's do the apply pitch via LinkedIn without a link. So this is in response to this request. So tell me which of these treatments to ship and where, and whether each one is standalone or includes a link. So I just said without a link, just because yeah, I don't have one with me at the moment. So we just press send, and this will write. So it will take this pitch. So this is, as you can see, this is not a social media message. This is just an argument that it's talking us through. And now it's shaping up a social media message. And as I was saying earlier, this is something that I would be happy to post on my own social media. And what it's doing is it's also checking something that's typical of LinkedIn. So this is about the platform rules. I don't know if you're familiar with LinkedIn posts, but whenever you have a long post, which this would qualify as, you get a dot and then there's a preview of the link or something like that or an image. And it's just telling me before the dot, the initial sentence, which is the provocation, would fit, which is great. So essentially, what I would do here is just copy and paste and leave it there. Whereas if this had been on Claude Code, it would automatically saved into the archive and referred to later on as needed.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll answer some chats as well here. Before we do, I just want to say again, for people that want to do this and just start right away, like where can people find this? What's the link for the actual product and how do they get started?
Let me share my screen again, and as I do that, let me also get the right link so that I share in the chat a link with the discount code if anybody is interested. But let me share the screen now. There will be an article following the conversation with Leo today, accompanying the video that he'll be posting on YouTube. And that will include a link to this. So this is the Gumroad page with the pipeline that you can access to the link I put in the chat. And as you can see, there's a full description of what it does. It describes all the features that we've covered today and everything that's included. So all the skills that are behind the pipeline, the template. So there's a writing voice, platform reference. And there's also something called the run log that I didn't talk about earlier because it's quite technical, but the run log is essentially a file that for each communication pipeline that you run, it just logs what's been discussed and the decisions that you've made so that in future you can go back to it if you like. There's also some code that converts input files. That's very important if you use the Claude code or you put this into Codex, as we were saying. And yeah, an important point about requirements that if you run this in a Claude project or any other large language model, there are no requirements whatsoever. All you need to do is get the files and upload them in any chat alongside the file that you want to communicate about. Whereas if you want to run this through Claude Code, obviously you do need Claude Code on your machine and also Python 3. This is free to download, of course, just a programming language. And the only thing that it does is convert inputs into down that Claude can read or any other large language model can read. A word of caution as a general good practice, whenever you download scripts on your computer that somebody else has written, ask your large language model of choice that they are not malicious. I promise this one isn't, but as a matter of good practice, whenever you open something like this on your computer, it's a good habit to ask Claude, can you check the Python script and confirm that it doesn't do anything malicious and tell me exactly what it does? This is slightly derailing our conversation, but I thought I'd mention it in that people will be more and more familiar with this sort of thing. So yeah, I'll stop screen sharing now, but this is where the approach sits. and the link is in the chat and will be on the auto asking question over the next few days.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good point to mention as well. Hopefully you guys think that we're trustworthy enough. I will say you should definitely check. Give it a check anyways. I don't usually do this, Andrea, but I will for this case. And I'm not really one to usually try and sell somebody something on a product like the way, for example, like I run my Substack. It's more, I treat it more like a tip jar, if anything. But I think this is special. So I'm gonna ask you this question, and then I'm gonna try and get my business side of me to pitch everybody on this now. Okay, transparently. So Andrea, how many subscribers do you have on Substack?
At the moment, 77,000.
Okay. So if you guys think that it's worthwhile to basically be able to download something on your computer that could build you a Substack like Andrea's, what do you think the value of a 77,000 subscriber Substack is? There's people out there that are actually buying Substack profiles right now, and they will pay a hefty fee for it as well. So I will say if you think that it's worth it right now, so we have with this discount code for the first 50 people, you get 50% off. Uh, We're selling it as $100 product, so you get this for $50. If you were to ask me and I was in this live stream right now and just watching this and saying, this guy Andrea Chiarelli basically is giving me the tool to build a Substack the same way that he did to 77,000 subscribers for $50, I would jump on it personally if that's something that I want to do. So that's my slight little pitch there. I think it's well worth it for somebody with as large of an audience as Andrea. I think it's quite impressive and also just like pretty awesome that you're just putting it out there. If you guys want to do this, you could do this too in your own voice. You're not going to make another Andrea Chiarelli Substack. But you're going to make a Substack of your own with your own individual voice and be able to grow it and automate it. So yeah, I guess we'll answer a few chats here before I do. So Andrea left the link for Gumroad there in the chat if you guys want to go check it out. Pretty simple. And like you said, no requirements. I'm going to just leave a link for the YouTube channel where we're going to post a stream. This video will be out within a few days. Andrea will also make an article which will have the Gumroad link, the YouTube link as well soon. And yeah, I guess we'll just answer a couple chats and we'll wrap it up here. Let's see. I think there was really just a couple main ones that I really wanted to touch on here. I see people were thankful for the transparency, and I think, yeah, people appreciate it. Obviously, we got into the Codex versus Claude Code topic. So basically, I think the main one that I saw here was from Lydia. And can you automate posting and scheduling once you approve the copy? And the answer to that is yes, but I'll let Andrea touch on that.
Yeah, so there's different ways of doing it. So the the main barrier is that Substack doesn't have an API, essentially a public API. You can automate in through code to an extent, but you need to resort to some workarounds or tricks. Essentially, the way to do it is that you would have to get the session cookie from your Google Chrome browser, put it in the Substack folder, in your Claude Code folder, and then ask it to build a scheduling script. It's not especially hard to do. When I say I have built, Claude has built for me. But yeah, I have built a script, for example, that backs up my subscriber base on a monthly basis. And it uses this little trick with the session cookie. So yeah, you can do it to an extent, but it's not that straightforward. Or you can do it directly on Substack, so it's slightly more manual, but you can create 5, 6, 10 messages and then schedule them into Substack with the planner. If you're happy, that's what I would recommend essentially. Once you've got some messages that you like, then you can schedule them in Substack directly, or you can schedule them on LinkedIn or any other social media using Buffer or other tools. So yeah, LinkedIn and X you can manage easily through Buffer, for example. So that's what I would do personally.
Yeah, awesome. I'm not too much on other social medias other than Substack and YouTube, but I will say for both of those platforms, scheduling is very simple, very straightforward. Whether it's notes or articles on Substack, if you wanted to, you could schedule a post every day, starting now. And if you use these tools that Andrea is providing, not only are you automating the content with your own individual voice, your own style, but you can also automate the scheduling. on the platform itself. So, yeah, I think we covered the topic pretty well, Andrea. Anything else to add before we wrap up?
No, there was a question about, can you summarize what the $50 offer exactly? And I think, to be honest, the main part of the answer is time. If you're personally, I'm very time poor. I have a small child, a Substack, various social media channels. I use social media professionally as well. So aside from my Substack, and for me, it's essential to come across a certain way because it's got to do with my credibility. So if I do that poorly, I'm in trouble. But at the same time, if I want to do it right, I'll be working overtime every day, which just doesn't work for me. And if I think about my day rate at work, it's $50 is completely inconsequential, and anybody who does social media professionally would have a social media machine with pitches in their own voice that otherwise would cost a lot of time and consequently money. And if it's not money, for me it would be my mental health being on Substack either very early or very late in the evening.
Yeah. I see Lydia said that she can't access the link to the system. I know that you posted it in the chat there.
Interesting. Let me just try it again.
Let me try and copy and paste your link and see
Uh,
if it works on my
yeah,
end.
it works on my computer.
Yeah, it works on mine as well.
So yeah,
Yep.
maybe try it again, perhaps a different browser, but yeah, it should work.
Yep.
Otherwise, feel free to DM either me or Leo after the conversation, and we'll be happy to
Sure.
share it in the chat.
There's the link again. I just tried it. It works on my browser. So copy paste the link. If it doesn't work now, DM us. We'll send you the link personally. And yeah, that's about it, guys. So we'll wrap it up. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in the world. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, Andrea, very much as well. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye
Bye.
now.